I'm Brendan Coogan, freelance reporter, once driven by fossil fuels, but now embracing everything electric powered. This is EVTV. Welcome to EVTV, the series that explains everything you need to know about electric vehicles. We're coming to you once again from DHL's Innovation Center near Bonn in Germany. Electric vehicle sales are set to account for over half of all new car sales by 2040, if not before. And all new electric vehicle technology needs a strong platform to develop. That's where Formula E comes in.
Go green under the lights.
Hey, I'm Adrien Dieu from DHL, experts in automobility and EV logistics. In our last episode, we looked at the changing landscape for the EV value chain. This time, we're taking both a broader and a more detailed look at electric vehicle logistics to understand what a new era of EV logistics will eventually look like. But first, so, it sounds that, after all, EVs are much safer than some popular press would have you believe. Today I'm sitting in DHL Innovation Center in Germany, located out of Bonn. It's part of a global network of innovation centers in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, and even in the Middle East. The reason for that being is actually to explore how trends are impacting the way we live and the way our societies are evolving. It's also to explore how innovation can be implemented into logistics operations. It seems like a very good place then for Fabio and myself to introduce you to two very important people at the forefront of electric vehicle logistics innovation. Hello Katja, and welcome to EVTV. Before we start into the EV topic, can you tell us a little bit more about the value that CSI is bringing to the automobility sector in general and how it helps with electrification?
Absolutely. You know, I'm a firm believer that you can approach sales from two different angles. You either sell what you have, or you sell what the customer needs, or even better, you anticipate what the customer will need tomorrow. So this is what we try to do with our sector logic. And honestly, I think it's not enough to scratch on the surface of the sectors, but you really need a team out of experts that are 24/7 doing nothing else than to anticipate what the customer needs tomorrow and work on solutions. So this is mainly what we're doing.
Fathi, welcome to EVTV. What are, in your opinion, the particular demands on such a complex supply chain like the automobility one?
Yes, so automobility supply chains are truly global supply chains with global sourcing patterns. They also tend to be lean and agile. So just in time is important for automobility. And these days, we are all aware about the challenges that the industry is facing with the semiconductor shortages, with some material also shortages, and we are more in a concept now of just in case that we need to learn to adjust. And there it's important to take care about really resilience, but also inventory management, so important elements and risk management that we have.
Obviously, the automotive industry is going through very deep changes, right? Consultant talked about the case trends like connected, autonomous, shared and electric cars of the future. What will be the impact on logistics from these trends?
So we start to find some convergence between auto mobility and, for example, tech. So very often when we talk about electric vehicles and connected vehicles, we talk about technology on wheels. Therefore, there are elements like, for example, conditions monitoring that are getting important, conditions in terms of movement of special components. It can be batteries and other semiconductors, where humidity, where shock absorption, where temperature are getting important. So all kind of elements we can borrow from other sectors in terms of knowledge and solutions like life science or technology.
Leveraging what Fathi is saying about the convergence of the sector, I think that CSI could be in a best position to nurture this kind of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what we are actually seeing on a daily basis. Just keep in mind, there is no electric vehicle without a sufficient charging structure, right? So our colleagues in the energy sector are very, very close with our automobility team to make sure that these two industries talk together. Or see things like new electric devices like planes. Nobody would have ever thought that we would ever see a plane in the air that's driven by electric power. But actually, this is what we see. We recently bought, as a DHL, a few of them. So yeah, and this trend is continuing.
I mean, the challenge of electrification is actually common to many sectors. We talked about technology sector, we talked about transportation sector, aviation, and obviously to the automobility sector. So Fathi, you're the expert in this case, and let's go back to the automobility supply chains. What do you see as the main impacts of electrification on your business, on automobility logistics?
Yeah, first of all, there is a challenge, which is also an opportunity, which is the battery, the lithium battery, because lithium batteries are considered as being dangerous goods. So we need to get the right solutions in terms of addressing the regulations related to these batteries for transportation, warehousing. We need also to have the right investments in our infrastructure to upgrade some of our facilities, but also training is also important in relation to that. And there, every day we learn and we develop different solutions in relation to that. Also, you may have noticed that we are a sponsor of Formula E, and being a sponsor of Formula E is helping us to learn a lot about what is required also in terms of movements, in terms of regulation, but in terms also of packaging, which is a very important element, especially for defective batteries. And of course, we need to think about recycling and then, you know, a 360-degree supply chain loop in relation to electric vehicles.
I mean, that's quite a long list of prerequisites before we are capable to actually enable the electrification revolution within the automotive sector. The question I have for you, Katja, is will we be ready on time for the industry to be able to deliver on the EV promise to consumer?
Yes, I think we are pretty well prepared to accept this challenge, but in the end, you know, like always, it takes two to tango. So we really have to team up with the OEMs, with the manufacturers to make sure that we have flawless and smooth supply chains.
Fathi, I think electrification can be also a great leverage for ourselves.
As of 2015, we have our first electric vehicles in our operations, and we were a key catalyzer in the industry to develop commercial vans for our needs. Of course, our objective is not necessarily to produce cars, electric cars, but we need them in our operations because we have an important target towards zero net emissions by 2050, and we are a leader in sustainable logistics.
There's more we can do, right? And Katja, I know you are an enthusiast driver.
I'm an enthusiastic electric vehicle driver, to be honest. So yeah, and I have to say our company is really a front runner in bringing electric vehicles into our car policy. What we have to do as well is now to make sure people can charge it. You know, we need the charging infrastructures at our offices, yeah, and we need to motivate young people to go for an electric car.
So you see, when we talk about electrification, when we talk about sustainability, it's not just about just infrastructure or investments. It starts with the mindset, and from this enthusiasm, it can tell a lot about our future.
Lead by example. It looks like we are on the right path. Thank you, Fathi. Thank you, Katja, for joining EVTV. We're very much looking forward to welcome you again soon. And thank you again.
Thank you.
For OEMs to achieve full electrification, it's no surprise that they rely on strategic partnerships to drive scale and speed. Iveco are no exception. They too are working with a number of partners to build an ecosystem favourable to the electrification of commercial transport. Iveco are committed to sustainability as one of their core values, helping customers reduce their carbon footprint. In fact, they've been working on greener transport solutions since the early 1990s. In the 21st century, this commitment continues with the goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2040, a full decade before European carbon neutrality targets. They aim to do this through a variety of different approaches to suit transport needs. No one size fits all here. Well, to discover a little bit more about how they're going to achieve this, I'm joined by Luca Schra, who is the president of the truck business unit here at Iveco Group. Luca, welcome to EVTV. I was thinking about the job that you have in front of you, electrifying the whole of the Iveco product range. How's it going?
But we didn't start yesterday because we started working hard on alternative fuels some 20 years ago. So that's the reason why we developed during advance versus the other OEM, CNG units, and then translating into LNG. And as of today, we have an up-to-date solution, and we are pretty much focusing on biogas and biofuel. But I know you're pretty much curious about electrification and fuel cell.
You're right, we are all about the EV, but natural gas and other solutions, then you're saying, are going to at least get you to where you want to be. You have to think about the whole scene.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I mean, it will be a process and there will be a progressive pickup by electric units and fuel cell units get in the field of other proposition, but it will not go in a while.
There's one thing I've learned from making EVTV, and that is nobody can do it on their own. Everybody needs partnerships.
Obviously, partnership, they are making the difference and putting yourself in the position to deliver. So we got a big partnership with Nikola on electric and fuel cell for heavy commercial vehicles. Meanwhile, we are working on the batteries of the e-Daily with Microvast, that is an up-to-date provider under that perspective.
There's a lot of concentration on light commercial vehicles and things like that, but walking around Iveco here, seeing the heavy commercial vehicles, you have some exciting prospects that you're already testing.
Absolutely, yes. We have almost 20 units up and running and going in between Arizona in US and in Europe. We are in final product trials on heavy commercial vehicle and approaching, by the way, also the final test on the electric daily to be ready.
I want to talk about connectivity because obviously your business parts expect more than just a van.
You have to be connected, and connectivity is the soul of our trucks, and that's the reason why with Amazon, or more specifically with AWS, Amazon Web Services, we designed the Iveco Driver Pole that is much more than a voice assistant inside the truck cab, but it's a way to be connecting to your system in order to qualify product performance, to have a better product uptime, and to be leveraging on the existing backup in terms of dealer network.
I know that you opened up a big factory in Ulm in Germany last year. That must have been a significant step in the process for you.
You know, it has been part of our path, and we have to remember three milestones. One is 2022. We are going to be ready at the end of the year with the first electric units on the yard, progressively ramping up in 2023 to be preparing the yard for 2025. And what is going to happen in 2025? we have an obligation to be reducing CO2 emission by 15%, 1.5. Obviously, the opening of Ulm plant, it's part of this journey because you need to have the proper backbone to deliver.
You talked about your business partners, DHL, Amazon, I'm sure that there are many. That's something about the total cost of ownership as well you have to present to them. It's not just about rolling a van off the production line.
It has to fly because on one side there is an obligation by law, but on the other side it has to be right and working for your business partner, both in terms of service to be offered by them to their customer and in terms of P&L impact. So I believe that progressively, by getting scale, we're going to be getting a benefit in terms of cost reduction on battery and electric components, and meanwhile we'll see a progressive increase of diesel price and decrease of the energy price. So that's the reason why, talking about partnership, it's important to be working hard also with the energy providers.
Of course, they're another business, but yeah, you have partnerships everywhere.
Yeah.
Going back to the e-Daily, which we've talked about a lot, the Daily is a world famous brand, really. Everywhere we go in the world, we see dailies doing the daily journey. How big was the pressure to get that right?
No, you're spot on, Brandon, and by the way, the Daily brand is a brand into the brands. We got this strong and unique heritage, and we are leveraging on that to be deploying and developing our e-Daily. So it's about keeping and maintaining the original DNA of the Daily and specs we're recognizing into the marketplace. And by the way, we're going to be offering a pretty much unique selling proposition into the marketplace because we are going to be electrified up to the 7.2 toners that is pretty much unique into the different, in between the different OEMs.
Well, it sounds like with the plant in Germany, the Daily going well, you don't need luck, but well, I wish you all the best anyway.
I can't say job done, but at least we're following a path and we're pretty much looking forward for it.
I think Iveco are in safe hands. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you very much, Brendan.
It's not unreasonable to assume that in the future, the availability and rapid delivery of EV batteries will become of national importance and have the potential to impact on the function of a country's transport systems. The global battery arms race continues to heat up. As of 2021, 148 of the world's 200 lithium-ion battery gigafactories in planning were located in China. While European and North American pipelines have begun to increase substantially over the past 12 months, they only have a planned combined total of 32. According to a report by Swedish-Swiss technology company ABB, the kilowatt-hour battery capacity required per vehicle is likely to rise. OEMs will increasingly be compelled to electrify most, if not all, of their fleets. The increase in the e-SUV and electric pickup truck segments in North America, for example, will likely increase battery sizes and with it, battery demand. Battery production will therefore need to increase faster than EV sales volumes would suggest. The report also forecasts that global battery demand will rise over the decade from 330 gigawatt hours in 2020 to 2,180 gigawatt hours by 2030. However, if EV sales go higher than the forecast, then battery production capacity will have to increase even more. And now for some news.
Northvolt have become the first startup battery manufacturer in Europe to begin production and shipments of lithium-ion battery cells from their gigafactory in northern Sweden. It has already secured auto contracts worth more than $50 billion. And in a joint venture with aluminium producers Hydro, it has opened Europe's largest electric vehicle battery recycling plant, with a current capacity of 12,000 tons of battery packs, equivalent to the whole Norwegian end-of-life battery market. The new partnership, called Hydrovolt, expects to increase its recycling capacity to 300,000 tons by 2030.
So it is increasingly evident that OEMs and suppliers are gearing up to cope with the huge demand in EVs that we're all experiencing. If the transition to EVs is a revolution for the automotive market, it will also have a domino effect on EV logistics. But how quickly are logistics providers adapting to meet the change in the EV sector? Fabio, just tell us, how ready are we at DHL, how ready are logistics providers today to support the industry in its revolution?
Yeah, as a DHL, we say we are going to be ready. And there are quite a substantial challenges in the market. Number one, we need to think about that we are living in an unprecedented world of disruptions already for the standard supply chain. Think about what happened with the related COVID-19 challenges. However, we need also to think about the fact that just the number of electric vehicles that will be sold will be rapidly growing, if not doubling, in a very short time frame. That will somehow put a huge stress on the supply chain. And we as DHL want to be ready to ensure that we are not the bottleneck of all this system. We will be, and we have to be ready.
Good to know. And of course, I guess readiness will have a cost. Investments will be needed in order to adapt the automobility supply chain to the new constraints of electrification. Where do we start to put the money, and where do we need to invest?
That's a good question. Of course, we need to invest. I think there are elements into the EV supply chain which are rather new into the automobility industry. I would say about these increases in some of the legislation. You need to have a much more consistent approach. You need to have a process. You need to have solutions. You need to have preparation. You need to have trained people. You need to have compliant assets. So you really need to have quite a substantial initial investment, which is, of course, part of the game. However, those investments will enable a series of a kind of domino effect in terms of opportunities. We need to stop thinking about that an electric vehicle is just a car without an ICE, and instead of that you have a battery pack and an engine. It's a completely different world. As we said, we are, most of us are just tank station native. So we are able to just to fill up the car and just get started. With an electric car, it's completely different. And that will unlock the opportunity for each of us, because there will be different angles of opportunity. Speak about e-commerce. Speak about the fact that you have additional services that can be sold with the car. Think about, and all those kind of things are impacting heavily the supply chain opportunity and capability of DHL.
So right, time to reinvent ourselves and time to reinvent the automobility value chain. Thanks a lot, Fabio.
We are in a new era for EV logistics, so we've been hearing about the plans to meet the challenges that lie ahead.
We know that EV logistics providers will have to scale up rapidly and sustainably to meet future demands.
It seems that EVs can often get an unfair press when it comes to safety.
And that safety and compliance is key with the expansion of the Gigafactory pipeline and battery manufacturing capacity.
As ever, this series is for you. So if you found it interesting, be sure to check out our other episodes, which are available online following the link on the screen below.
But most importantly, tune into episode 7 soon, when EV TV will have a day at the races.